So Daniel and I drive around quite a bit, and he's asking me today, he's like, so how did this whole Barndominium thing happen for you? You know what I mean? And I said, you know what, that's probably something our viewers would like to know. I mean, that's a good question. It's hard to really know where it all started. So I'm gonna have to start at the beginning. My dad has always been an entrepreneur. I don't think he's ever worked for anybody else. He just makes it happen. You know what I mean? And because of that, I was brought up to always make it happen. My dad would ask, I grew up ranching. And my dad would always say things like, for example, he'd say, hey, I need you to go do X, Y, Z, whatever it may be. And he would say, and I don't want you to come back and tell me the reason why it didn't happen. Okay? I need you to come back and say, done. Okay? So, as I was growing up, that was always the thing. It's like, I don't want to hear the reason. That's all he would say. At some point, he just shortened it to, I don't want to hear the reason. So my dad would just say, me and my brother, go do something, and I don't want to hear the reason. Okay? And that was that, So we'd come back, and if it didn't get done, we'd come back, and I'd be like, well, he'll understand because this happened, right? Something that we thought was, anybody would understand. Not my dad. No. He would get equally pissed for whatever the reason, okay? It didn't matter. To him, it never mattered. You got to get it done. So, I started being more creative with my solutions to any problem. And I grew up that way. And that's kind of, that was how I grew up, okay? So I graduated high school, then I went to college. I went to college for computer programming, but I had to pay my way through school. So I was doing construction. Again, I grew up ranching. So what I started doing, I learned how to weld, and that's another story in itself. So the reason, I'm going to make it quick, the reason I learned to weld was my dad and I used to build fences, okay, just barbed wire fences, any type of fencing. And we had a customer that wanted a pipe entrance, all welded pipe, and so we hired a welder to weld the braces. Well, Dad and I went out there, dug holes by hand. We didn't have an auger. Dug them by hand, mixed the concrete by hand, poured it in the hole, got the pipes all set up for the welder, and it took us all day to do the pipes that we needed to put in the ground. And I think at the time I was probably making $40 a day. Well, the welder shows up. He worked for 3 hours, and he charged us $75. I'm not very dumb. I figured out real quick that I needed to be welding, right? I need to be making $75 in 3 hours versus, $40 all day digging holes by hand. The guy showed up, fired up his welder, and, cut the pipes, welded them, and he was out of there. He was home early, and he made almost twice as much money that I made. So, anyway, I decided to learn how to weld. During high school, they had welding class, so I took welding classes, and I was the best welder in that class. I even have the award. Went back the next year, and it was an elective at that point, and I had already had my credits. I said, I don't care, I'm going to learn how to weld. I kind of saw, again, I had a purpose to learn how to weld. Most kids there, they just didn't want to learn, right? They didn't want to get dirty. I knew that was my way to double my income, just like that, for free. So I learned how to weld. I went back the next year, my senior year, and I welded the whole semester again. Built some barbecue pits, built a bunch of stuff. And my dad bought me a used welder, so we bought a used welder and started welding. So guess what? Started making more money, just like that. And again, always grew up ranching and all that. So now let's fast forward. Now I'm going to college at this time, and still ranching, okay, because that's how I'm paying for school, and welding on the weekends and all that good stuff. I was going to school 3 times a week, and I would work Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. There was one time where I had a competition. One of the professors said, look, there is a computer programming competition on Friday, and you have to go, and you have to, that's for grade. If you don't go, you're pretty much going to fail the class. The problem that I had was I had already scheduled, because I work weekends, I had already scheduled to go plant some grass on Saturday and Sunday. So that created a problem for me. So what I did was got up really early on Friday, and I think I skipped school that day because I knew I couldn't do both. I left really early on Friday, and I went and loaded up. I had one helper. We loaded up all the hay. There were square bales, and so we're going to sprig the grass, and I don't know if you know what that means, but the point is you cut green grass, you bale it, and then you go and you spread it back out, you disc it in, and you water it, right? So those bales, square bales, because they're green, they were very heavy. So we had to go load 200 of them. I went, this is back to the don't bring back the reason why I couldn't get done. You got to get it done. I went over there. I was loading them by hand, and the other person was just driving the truck, right? Loading them by hand, and I'm like, I'm keeping an eye on the time, and I'm like, I'm never gonna get done at this pace. Well, the rancher had a hay loader, but my trailer didn't have a way to attach it. So I asked the farmer, I said, do you have a torch? I said, yeah. I said, can I use it? He said, sure. So I took the trailer over there, cut a hole in my trailer, and made it to where I could put that hay loader on there. And I mean, it took me about, let's just say, an hour, but I knew it was going to save me a ton of time. So I invested my time in making that loader work, and sure did. Put it on there. We hooked up that loader to the trailer, and all of a sudden I didn't have to throw the hay up there. I just had to catch it and stack it. And long story short, got all the hay loaded, went home, unhooked the trailer, ran inside the house, changed my shirt. I was already late. I went to college for the computer programming competition. I got there and I was late. I was about 10 minutes late. That's another thing about me. I hate being late. So I was late, and because I was late, everybody else was paired up, right? Luckily for me, there was another guy that was late. So I didn't get to pick one of the good guys. And I mean, I did not know this guy. However, we were both late, so they paired us up together. And I've always been the type that kind of just takes charge. So I told the guy, I said, look, I'm going to program. You grab the book, and then you just give me the references. If I need anything code-wise, if I need some code, you can look it up. I said, I'm just going to go. So I started programming, read the paper that we needed to do, and I just started programming away. And at the time, I could type really fast. I could type about 80 words a minute. So, and most of this programming I was doing every day. So I had it almost memorized, right? So I'm just programming away, and this guy's just, I'm like, hey, I need you to look up the code for this or that or the other. And anyway, that's what we did. And long story short, we ended up winning the competition, right? Which kind of opened up my eyes. And I'm telling you about this thing because it really opened up my eyes as to what I could do if I really just put my mind to it, right? Like there's so much we can do, if you just kind of force yourself to do it. A lot of stuff we don't. It's really easy to say, well, that's too hard, I'm not going to do it. But because my dad brought me up the way he did, I always had that, I still do, where it's like, oh, it's going to get done. It's going to get done. And that's one of those things, and Daniel can tell you this, it really bothers me to no end when somebody who is supposed to be, for example, like for example, a trim guy, if he doesn't do just an amazing job it bothers me. Just anybody that's their profession. Heck, even food wise, you go to a restaurant. I don't understand how restaurants can have bad food if that's what they do. You know what I mean? Stuff like that is what I'm talking about. So won the competition, got the hay, went back home, hooked the trailer back up, got up like at 3 in the morning the next day, went and planted all the grass that weekend, and was back in school Monday. You know what I mean? That's what I did. No, I did not party. You don't have time to party when you're trying to make it. You know what I mean? When you're you have a large vision. So one of the quotes that I really like is, "Don't trade what you want now for what you want most." Never do that. And most people, and I did it at one time, do this. They trade what you want now for what you want most, right? So anyway, I just started working and building fences, building cattle pens, building all kinds of welding stuff. Until one day, the rancher that I worked for, he said, "Hey, I need a metal building. Do you know anyone that can do that?" And he says, "Heck, why don't you just do it?" And I thought, well, I've never done a metal building before, but it can't be that hard, right? That's another thing about me. I believe I can do anything. So I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. So got me a helper, and luckily that helper that I hired, he knew how to build them. So I said, hey, I'm all ears. Let's do this. So built the first metal building. That rancher loved it so much, he told a few of his friends, and all of a sudden I was a metal building builder. Guess what? Metal building builders make more money than gate welders. So that was another eye-opening experience for me. So I started doing that for a while. So I was going to school, building metal buildings, welding, just whatever I could get my hands on. And I paid my way through school for the most part. I never finished school because I got to the point where I was like, okay, I just can't do both. School was to the point where it was really demanding. The programs that, the homework that we were being assigned was multiple tens of pages long, the programs. And they were just getting too big, and work was getting too busy. And I had to make a decision. I'm like, do I continue working and see where that takes me? Or do I stay in school and, stay in school, get a degree, go get another degree, and try to get a job, and hopefully I like where I work, and all that. And I said, no, you know what? I can always come back to school. I can't always go back to doing what I'm doing. So I decided to quit school. And I went full-time into ranching and metal buildings and all that. And that's what I did. And this is 20 years ago, So I decided to do that. And of course, we're still ranching because my dad was always ranching. And, we would bale hay, we would cut hay, we would, work cattle, vaccinate, everything and anything. And that's what we did, we hunted in the winter. We were full-blown country, So anyway, that's how, that kind of set up the stage for the, I already had that mentality of you got to get it done. All right, number one. Number two, I inherited my dad's work ethic. He's always working, right? And so I was always working. So I had that, and now I knew how to weld. I knew how to build metal buildings. That's where I'm gonna have to stop right now because I'm here to get some tires for my truck. And but next show I will continue with kind of where all this came from and my beginnings. So we'll see you next time. We are Texas Barndominiums.